What is going on, you guys? Hope you are having a great day, morning, noon, night, whatever it be for you. Hope you're having the best day you could possibly be having right now. So, guys, we're going to be getting back into Warhammer 40K for you guys. We just finished up part 1 of Bricky's videos, and we're going to be getting into part 2 for you guys. Now, I have learned a whole lot from you guys. The feedback y'all are giving is amazing. It is through the freaking roof, guys. And I've got to say right now, I've got to say one of my favorites is going to be the Caluxus Assassins, the Inquisitors. You know, you got Exterminatus. You got to love that. And the Space Marines. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm liking those, but I hear part 2 Brickies, we're getting to the Chaos Gods. And that just, oh, that sounds metal. That sounds like that's going to be my cup of tea. So, without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into this part 2 of Brickies. And like last time, guys, I'm going to split these up into 2 different videos for you, so you're not having to sit through 50 minutes. I mean, if you want to sit through 50 minutes, just let me know. I'll make those videos longer for you guys. So, without further ado, guys, Brickies, Warhammer, every single faction explained, 40K, part 2. Ready?
Hey all, this is part 2 in a 2-part series on the Warhammer races.
What's up,
if you haven't
Bricky?
seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man. You can check that out in the description, and I would highly recommend you watch that to get context for this episode. If you already have, go ahead and keep on watching. So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again, but a little bit less. We also got demons and shit.
Yay. I just felt someone grab my ass.
What?
Like hard demons.
So, as I've mentioned many times before, we've discussed the warp,
Bricky.
the immaterium, the hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm between the material realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny. It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination of just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are 4 gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are the 4 major chaos gods. And if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he's the easiest. Khorne is your classic Satan. He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts, death. You ever heard the term blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne? That's Khorne. The whole idea is that he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't care where blood comes from, so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death, 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 death. That is Khorne. Very simple to understand. Next up, you have Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change. However, the god of change, it permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving and scheming and doing his best to cause as much little bullshit as he can. Tzeentch is unknowable. Everything that makes sense, he will and won't do. Every future and setting and every type of destiny or fate is all foretold and also changeable. It is set in stone while also completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen and also that none of it's going to happen.
So Tzeentch is like the fates, the 3 fates that pull out the string and can tell, you know, what's going to happen in your lifetime, exactly when you die, what you're going to be. Tzeentch. He sounds like the fates.
You would ask Tzeentch a question. And that question leads to 3 more questions. And those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks 4 answers to those questions. And then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you even asking the questions? Or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horse shit? Tzeentch is just, I'm gonna fuck with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is the understanding and he is complexity. He is unknowable. And that's what the God of Change is about. Very bizarre. And he likes birds a lot. I don't know why. Next up, we got Papa Nurgle.
Papa Nurgle!
He loves you for who you are. Probably not. He will murder you just the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence, death, and decay. He is the end of everything. Him and Tzeentch do not like each other very much because where Tzeentch represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and pestilence and large bloat and pus and organs and people just being sedentary, sloth. He is the idea that everything will rot and decay and die. Nothing is certain besides decay and death. All of us will end up the same way, and broken down through just sheer never-ending decomposition. So the joke that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot, and we all die and wither. That's Nurgle, and he's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well, and he chunk! Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is Slanesh, also known as the Prince of Pleasure, or the God of Unspeakable Excess. Slanesh is generally referred to with sex, but it's not...
Oh... He reminds me of the character in Berserk. God, why am I pulling a blank right now? He becomes Femtu, one of the Chaos Gods, or Chaos Angels, or Angels of Death in Berserk. God, what is his name? Griffin. Griffin. That's what he looks like with the long flowing white hair. Yeah, Griffin became Femtu, which Chaos Angel, Angel of Fate. I don't know. Yeah, continue.
Not only sex, it's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. Slanesh is just the idea of the senses of the body being cranked to not just 11, but more like 17.
He said that.
See, we'll discuss Slanesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done fucked up. But it, or whatever, is mainly about just the excess of emotions. And therefore, sex is generally a large part of it. However, it's mostly pain and torture. Lots of pain, torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs. Slanesh gets off on everything. Extremes in happiness, extremes in sadness, extremes in pain and sadism and masochism, and of course that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff. And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything, mainly pain and also the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of them have things like spikes or whips or any kind of BDSM style gear because it is unspeakable excess. The prince...
Oh my god, guys, sorry to keep stopping it, but that reminds me, I don't know if this will show you my age. If any of y'all have ever read the books Animorphs, though that picture reminds me of the aliens that came to Earth, the Hork-Bajir. They had spikes everywhere, but kind of more of a lizard head. But the whole body kind of reminds me of that. Yeah, continue.
Of pleasure, everything in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening. That is Slanesh in a nutshell. A little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk more about the Dark Eldar later in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you'd want to. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up, and just frightening things, right? Well, the thing is that, of course, one, your mind is put into the warp and the materium, so you can be easily swayed by chaos demons when they get into your head, especially if you're a psyker. Sometimes regiments of the less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians or, say, low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally refer.
So
however,
the
and this might
chaos
seem
give
strange,
a power
chaos
upgrade?
in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos gods have another side to their coin. Khorne might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter, but he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest, trial by combat, and honor. Khorne will never lie to you. Khorne will never stab you in the back. Khorne isn't about conniving and scheming. Khorne is about straight up mano-y-mano, you versus me, get in the ring, we're going to murder each other hard right now.
My friend.
It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Tzeentch generally don't get along because Tzeentch is that conniving schemer, but he's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change for your predicament. There is change for your problem. The hope of the galaxy, the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want, the changer of ways. That is Tzeentch. And of course, Tzeentch and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality. An ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end. Fear of the unknown, fear of change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that ability that this is over. We are all the same, and we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. And with that, it brings peace of mind. Slanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slanesh embodies happiness. Slanesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink and air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with Slanesh. So you have to ask, why are they always represented as super evil skulls and spikes on everything and want to murder everybody?
Because it's metal.
I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him. So cool. So combining all this together on the tabletop, like Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger. You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are as they seem. Demons. Nurgle is slow. Khorne is super scary in melee. Yeah. You've got Tzeentch, who are far more into psychers and spellcasting, and then Slanesh, who is all melee, really fast, but squishy, but in lots of hordes and tons of melee
to paint a full army.
So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40K and a massive threat to almost every single faction, with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
Wow.
So Horus and all of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs, they have all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, and the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater demons? They're demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids that are pretty awesome, if I'm going to be honest. They look really cool. But them and their associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I got to write them down. But you've got the Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slanesh. These people, they are some messed up people. They're just sensory overload, tons of drugs, tons of torture. And I think Fulgrim is a demon Primarch right now, and oh god, I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because Emperor's children are, not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists, with Primarch Perturabo, I believe is his name. They're Chaos Undivided, they just kind of serve Chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the four. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and are a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people and terrorism. They're generally about fear, and rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron, still alive, also excited to see. Angron, if you think you've known an angry person, Angron is the angriest son of a bitch you will ever know. Angron removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angrier. Angron. Fucker's mad. You've got the Death Guard with Primarch Mortarion. They actually have their own special codex and their own major army on the tabletop. Mortarion himself is actually one of the models. And look at him. Look at him.
Literally.
It's so cool looking. Of course, Nurgle based, obviously. That? So very slow, but very tanky. You've got the Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning. At least I blame them for it. They're little assholes. You got the Black Legion with Primarch Horus. Get fucked, nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius Omegon. Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch Magnus the Nerd. The Thousand Sons also have their own book, just like the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. Too. He looks super cool, as you can tell. And they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat. But overall, with all of these Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main...
So, if there are also Psykers, would the Caluxus Assassins work on them? Even though I guess they're stronger or more base than Chaos, would the Caluxus Assassins have an even easier time defeating them? I don't know. Like I said, it's a whole lot of information. Let me know down in the comments, guys. Thank you.
Ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Sons, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least. See this right here? This is a really good way to describe the Chaos Space Marines. What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided. They must not err, or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury and might, and it consumes them. Thus, you can see chaos is inevitable. We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls, on the tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them, but freed from the shackles of ignorance. We are them, grown strong, evolved. We are them, but so much more. As hardcore as that quote is, the saddest part is they're mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines, a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes to the warp. Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point. Every demon you banish will return at some point. Chaos is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow, the resources to do so, the requirements to do so are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are without number, their legions are everywhere, and yeah, they're pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, I promise, we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
Xenos, the Eldar.
So let's talk about the Eldar, or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were, as well, responsible for the creation of Slanesh, the newest demon god. How'd they do that? Debauchery on a world-ending scale. See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient. Millions of years. Dang. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore. There was no shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so comfortable. And that comfort breeded this weird sedation. And that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
That reminds me of a quote. How did it go? Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make bad times. Bad times create strong men. You see that? It's just secular, big old cycle.
Debauchery!
Debauchery! Debauchery! Debauchery! When everything you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to satiate these senses grew more and more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because these are the first things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander Cohen in BioShock look sane. Alright, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated, and this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the Craftworld Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called Craftworlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on these giant Craftworlds far in the outer reaches of space. They even had this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium? Well, the Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it bloated. Until
is what that looks like.
Slanesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, thought processes, I suppose. All of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp. All of this depravity right into the warp.
So, Slanesh was created because all that excess negativity, debauchery was encapsulated in that separate dimension, and because it was so tight, tiny, it all fused together, and then that was Slanesh was created. Maybe I just need to finish what he's saying.
So what happened? Boom! Slanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population. Untold trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slanesh demons. The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. All of them got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi-horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia. And it is horrifying. So this slanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple.
That looks badass.
Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this, as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack that birth of slanesh only affected the ones in the center. So these craft world Eldar were able to escape, but slanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slanesh, Craftworld or not. What about those people in the webway? Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slanesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered from Slanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed. And they understand it very well. Since the time of the fall, our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence, gave birth to. Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All the stars in the sky cannot blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's eye. The birthing place of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds, a conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the Monkai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. Is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny. And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craftworld Eldar and living in those Craftworld starships I mentioned earlier. And each of them have their own kind of Craftworld, almost like a Space Marine Legion. Each Craftworld is in itself its own special kind of group. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Squishy. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population, and their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard-hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion and trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder, and Eldar in their own right really rely on this to keep their species alive. They need to think about deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale.
Always keep them guessing.
Entirely small population. However, I must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people. And as they continually, reproduce and have their craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race being sucked into Slanesh every time someone dies, but they are definitely doing a little bit better than they were before. Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they don't make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call humans Monkai, which is something I mentioned earlier. That is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world.
Or like Freeze would say,
Monkai?
"Oh,
well,
you monkeys!"
You can't, in your game, call people monkeys. On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky, generally pretty squishy, hit like trucks and
Kinda
move
looks
at
like a
Mach
Gundam.
5. Fast, hit hard, die fast. Exactly
Or
how
a
it sounds. They've
Jaeger.
been good for a very long
Maybe
time.
more
too.
like a Jaeger
We
from
bring
Pacific
only
Rim.
death and leave only carry on. It is a message even a human can understand.
Yeah, I got that
Eldar.
one.
So, Drukhari. Let's talk about the Dark Eldar.
On today's
Dark
episode of
Eldar.
How Fucked Up Is Fucked Up. That's fucked up.
So those people I mentioned in the webway, in the super deranged cults and the depraved people of the Eldar, in the webway they didn't quite get a hold onto them. Slanesh like has them, but it has them on like by the pinky finger. And they're slowly being consumed by Slanesh, but they found out they can stave her off by doing Slanesh things. The Dark Eldar are by far
debaucherous
the
things.
worst, most horrifying, disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40K. These are entirely a group of people whose full purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can to torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years, because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very BDSM style too. They definitely have a lot more spiky bits and they have a lot more of that kind of leathery black look to them. But
Dark
let's...
elf.
Example, let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen, living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons. The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond, and that's it.
Yeah.
Not the worst way to go. You are invaded by Chaos Marines or something. You take a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach, and you get cut in half.
Ouch.
Painful, but not the worst. The orcs arrive. They beat you to death. Hurts, but, you know, whatever.
hurts,
Tyranids, they eat you alive. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want
The
that one.
Dark Eldar. The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I apologize. Cool. You pray you die. You don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony, 24/7. They will make sure you can't not die, as your pain satisfies them.
Feeds
They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices. They will inject pain-based like stimuli drugs directly into your
So
nervous
they're
system.
like
They will slowly
pain
run razor blades across your
vampires.
skin. They will fillet you and just pull out your teeth and your fingernails one by one. They will remove your appendages and your skin and wait for it to grow back so they can do it again. They will murder and torture and use the R
thanks.
word, it rhymes with grape, your entire family in front of you and do the exact same thing to them. You yourself will also be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible. And this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will be
done with
contorted,
me?
crushed, and twisted into some form of trophy. A fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch, or a TV stand, or perhaps a wonderful hat. While
Maybe
you are, of
if you
course,
put me
still
on a
alive
shelf,
and
sure, I'll
breathing.
be a trophy.
And you will become a moaning, fleshy trophy for eternity.
Yeah, best thing trophy they
And
got.
that is what happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar. They are the most depraved, most horrifying race in all of 40K. They look the part, and they do it so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this, because if they don't, Slanesh's grip will get harder, and they will have their souls pulled away. So long as they
Harder.
keep doing this, Slanesh is like, "You're doing good, man. You're doing solid. You keep
it up.
that shit up, you elf-eared bastards." That's the Dark Eldar. That's the Drukhari. They are horrible. On the tabletop, they're actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even squishier than the Eldar, but they hit generally even harder. Fast attacks, skirmishers, really quick, speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage,
those
get away
models,
kind of stuff. That's
gosh.
most of the Dark Eldar. Look up the definition of Grim Dark in a dictionary. You'll find a picture of the Dark Eldar. And Sev from Republic Commando. A quote from Mr. Vecht. We are the Lords of Despair, masters of terror, dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are plentiful indeed. Dark Eldar.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that is going to be the end of the video for today. Wow. So, Chaos Gods, you're right. Part 2 has started off to a great start. I've got to say, Korn is going to be my favorite. He not only looks badass, apparently he's metal as crap. And he's very honorable. He will never stab you in the back. But guys, I do have a question. So I really did like the Korn model, or God, I forget the name of the other guy he said. But yeah, where can I get these at? How long does it take to paint? And how much money do they normally cost? Because I can't say that I'm gonna be getting into the tabletop, but I'm not gonna say I won't get some models and put up here with the rest of the collection. But like I said, I don't really know where to get them from. I usually go to like Ed McKay and get these guys. So yeah, go ahead. Somebody leave that down in the comments for me. Educate me some more. And don't forget, guys, Papa Nurgle loves you. Don't forget. So guys, like I said, that's going to be the end of the video for today. And don't forget, like I said previously, guys, this is not just a 40K reaction channel. We do anime, music videos, funny videos, lore, fantasy, really whatever you want to get my 2 cents on. Something you think I'll have a good time watching, we can send it to me. We'll both sit back. We all have a good time watching it. You know, you can get my 2 cents on it, and we'll have a good time, you know. Get rid of the everyday stresses of life and just, you know, take a little time out with Trey. So with that being said, guys, peace, love, happiness to you. Have a great rest of your day. And don't forget, guys, be easy.